So, you want to get better at looping. If you're completely new to the game, or you usually just run until you go down, this video's for you. It's worth mentioning that both killers and survivors have perks that aid them in chase, so almost everything in this tutorial comes with the caveat that you might run into a counterplay, and countering that counter just comes with experience. When I am in chase, I am mainly trying to waste the killer's time so my teammates can work on gens, unhook a survivor, or heal. Because of this, my goal is not to lose the killer, but simply to keep them busy for as long as possible. And with that being said, let's jump right in. The first thing you'll want to know before you get into chase is where the windows and pallets are. Anytime I'm working on a generator, I look around to see where I'm going to run if the killer shows up. The more you know what resources you have, the more likely you are to last longer in chase. Once I know my escape route, I constantly look around to see if the killer is coming toward me. Now that you can play custom matches with bots, I recommend playing as killer and just exploring different maps to familiarize yourself with the layouts. The next thing to practice is looking around you while you're running. If you only look straight ahead, you won't know what the killer is doing. But if you only look behind you, you'll run into things. The balance is learning how to pan your camera without changing the direction you're running. Then you can periodically glance back to keep tabs on the killer. This will help you decide whether to stay at a particular loop or move to another one. I would also recommend keeping your camera tilted slightly downward so you can see over barriers and spot obstacles quickly.
Can't see, vision compromised. I can't see, vision down.
One of, if not the most important parts of looping, is reacting to what the killer is doing, so using your camera effectively is extremely important. The primary goal of looping is maintaining distance from the killer. One of the most effective ways to do this is to hug structures as tightly as possible without getting stuck on something. Most walls are smooth enough to run against without any issues, but a lot of loops have parts that jut out, making it important to loop as efficiently as possible, but not actually hug the edges. Vaulting windows can be a great way to gain distance while in chase because killers take much longer to step through, unless they're this guy. There are 3 speeds at which the survivor vaults: slow, medium, and fast. To slow vault, you hit the vault button without holding your run button. It is much quieter and doesn't notify the killer that you're vaulting. To medium and fast vault, you do hold the run button, and they both make a sound notification. You almost always want to get a fast vault over a medium, but this requires a certain angle and distance. If you stand directly in front of the window and vault, or if you're running alongside the wall, you will only medium vault. To get the fast vault, you have to be running toward the window from the front and be a certain distance away. Figuring out the angles and distance just takes practice. Also, keep in mind that if you medium or fast vault a window 3 times while in chase, the entity will block the window for 30 seconds. I recommend leaving the loop early if possible to avoid it altogether. Pallets are a limited resource, and I recommend only using them when absolutely necessary. If timed correctly, pallets can be dropped on the killer to stun them momentarily, giving you time to make distance to another loop. Unlike windows, pallets can be vaulted indefinitely until the killer breaks them. The animation of the killer breaking the pallet also gives you time to make distance. How safe the pallet is depends entirely on the size of the loop around it. Some pallets have a long side and a short side. You'll want to run around the long side as much as possible so it's harder for the killer to double back and get a hit. Really safe pallets are referred to as God pallets. The Killer Shack is a prime example of a God pallet and is ideally left up until a survivor needs to use it to avoid being put on their third hook. Generally speaking, the safer a pallet is, the more I try to avoid using them. Keep in mind that all survivors run at the same speed, but not all killers do. Certain killers, such as Huntress, Trickster, and Deathslinger, have a range attack, but their base movement speed is slower than most other killers. Also, when they charge their secondary attack, they slow down even more. Myers, on the other hand, moves faster when in Tier 3, and of course you have the killers that can rush. Getting better at looping requires that you understand each killer's power and how to counter it. All killers have a mechanic called Bloodlust that kicks in after a certain amount of time in chase. There are 3 tiers, and each tier makes the killer faster. Tier 1 activates after 15 seconds of uninterrupted chase, Tier 2 after 25 seconds, and Tier 3 after 35 seconds. The killer loses Bloodlust when they are no longer in chase, when they hit a survivor, or when they break a pallet. To keep the killer from getting Bloodlust, or to make them lose it, there are a few things you can do to drop chase. Walk for a certain amount of time, even if the killer has line of sight. Break line of sight for long enough, even if you are still running. Or put the killer in a position where they need to break a pallet to continue chase. Keeping Bloodlust in mind and dropping chase whenever possible will be a huge help in extending the chase. Looping is not always about running. Almost every tile has spots where you can stop and see what the killer is doing. To use Shack as an example, you can stop at each corner that is farthest from the doors and wait until you see which way the killer is coming from. I recommend letting go of your run button in these moments to get exhaustion back if needed and to drop chase quicker. It's not always necessary, but I feel like it's a good habit to have. Chaining tiles can be a great way to keep a chase contained so you're not leading the killer to a teammate on a gen, while also conserving pallets. As you learn the layouts of each map, you'll be able to start chaining tiles while in chase. There are times when the killer could come from multiple directions, and instead of trying to guess, you can just leave that tile for another one. It can be difficult to look around while looping, so the more you know the layout of the map before getting chased, the more you'll be able to chain loops. If you find yourself out in the open and the killer is gaining distance, you can try to 360 them. Wait until the killer's red stain is on your back and then swerve back toward them. A lot of killers will expect this and know how to counter it. So you can also swerve side to side and act like you're going to 360 and hope that they swing early. Looping requires an understanding of the killer and knowledge of the map. The more you learn about these two things, the better you will be. in mind that not every chase will be amazing. The killer is being controlled by a person, and everyone has a different playstyle and uses different tactics. Stay on your toes and expect the unexpected. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now go be a menace.